guys, welcome to the Houston Zoo. My name is Kendall. I'm a hoof stock keeper, so that means that I'm part of the team that takes care of our giraffe herd each day. And I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about giraffes today. I think we're going to wait for a few minutes to let everybody start joining in. Feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'll be answering as many of them as I can get to. We currently have 6 Masai giraffe here at the Houston Zoo, and they do share their yard with the ostrich, 3 ostrich actually, and 1 zebra. These guys are all African savanna species, so they would all be found together in the wild naturally. They eat a lot of the same things. They're all social animals, so they do get along pretty well. As you can see now, they're all sharing food. What they're eating is actually what we call browse here at the zoo. Browse are basically just leaves right off of the branches and right off of the trees. This is what giraffes would be doing most of the time in the wild anyways. They spend about 80% of their time just walking from tree to tree and eating the leaves that they can reach. So this is one of their favorite types of food here. Whenever the horticulture team at the zoo has to do any kind of tree trimming, they'll go ahead and drop those branches off at our barns, and we're able to feed them out to our animals. We actually grow over 20 different species of plants and trees on zoo grounds here that we can feed to our animals. So that provides not just good nutrition, but also a little bit of enrichment for them so that they can have something to spend their time on. They will eat all the leaves and the bark and sometimes even the branches of their favorite browse. Right now what they're eating is a tree called hackberry. So we have one adult male who was front and center a second ago. His name is Joshua. He is about 4 years old. He's going on 5. So as such, he's not quite fully grown, but he is quite tall. Our tallest giraffe is actually a Sally, who's a little bit further over on the right, eating over our youngest Bobby. So a Sally is actually just about 16 feet tall. That's pretty normal for a giraffe, but that's very tall for a female giraffe. Usually giraffes top out somewhere between 14 and 17 feet tall by the time they're done growing. And that is baby Bobby. All right, Jeremiah asks, why are their necks so long? That's a good question. So their necks are really, really long because it allows them to reach food that other animals can't reach. These guys live on the African savanna, so they have to compete for food against a lot of other plant-eating species. By being as tall as they are and having those really long necks, they're actually able to reach more food, which means they can eat more food every day. They also have incredibly long tongues. You might see it soon here. Their tongues can be 1.5 feet long, and that gives them even more reach beyond what their long necks can get them. Ryan asks, how fast can they run? Giraffe can usually run up to about 30 miles an hour when they really get going, so that is quite fast. When they run, they don't gallop like a horse. They run more like a camel, where both legs on one side of their body will move at one time, and that allows them to cover more ground while also reducing the impact on their joints from the running. It's our zebra Kapuki. She's about 8 years old. So she is fully grown. A lot of times we get asked, oh, is that a baby zebra? Nope, she's just standing next to something that's 14 feet tall, so she looks kind of small. That is as big as she is going to be. That is a fully grown Grant zebra right there. We got a question from Jinga. How much do they eat? These guys here at the zoo, we have 6 giraffe. They will go through about 80 pounds of alfalfa every single day. That's a type of hay. They'll also go through about another 80 pounds worth of grain. So it's a pelleted diet that's got all of the nutrients that they need. On top of that, they will get a bunch of iceberg lettuce. They get at least 20 heads a day, a little bit of kale, a little bit of yam and sweet potato and carrots. So they have a pretty varied diet here. Like I said, there's about 20 different species of tree that we grow on grounds that we can give them to eat. So they'll eat a variety of things each day. Nate asks, are they related to any other animal? They actually are related to one other species that still exists. These guys' only living relative is the okapi. So if you don't know what an okapi is, at some point when you get the chance, come back to the Houston Zoo. We have 2 of them. They are significantly smaller than giraffes. They're about the size of a domesticated horse, but they have stripes on their back legs, so they're very distinct. But giraffes and okapi are the only species left in their entire family. Isaac asks, how fast can they run? So they can run up to about 30 miles an hour. We've got baby Bobby over here eating browse. This is one of his favorite things to do. I call him baby Bobby. He's not so much of a baby anymore. He's already around 9 months old and well over 8 feet tall at this point. So he is growing very, very quickly. Ava asks, are the giraffes friends with the ostrich and zebra? Are they friends? They get along, and they definitely don't mind sharing space with each other. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're friends. We don't see them like cuddled up together. But these guys are all savanna animals, so they would be found naturally in the wild, so they do not mind sharing space. They actually are all very alert to each other. If one of them is spooked by something or startled by something, the others will also kind of be on high alert because they're not sure what's startling the other one. So they do keep an eye on each other. They do like to be in the same areas, and they do get along. We've got Bobby demonstrating the use of his tongue right now. These guys do have prehensile tongues that are about 1.5 feet long. So they can actually use their tongues to grip things. That's what they'll do. That's how they eat. They stick that tongue out. They'll grab the leaf or the branch that they want to eat from, and they'll pull it into their mouth. Giraffes don't actually have front teeth on their upper jaw. They only have lower teeth. So they actually pull those leaves all the way into the back of their mouth where they have their molars and then chew on them there. Presley asks, how much do they weigh? Well, it varies by giraffes. So they usually will weigh anywhere between 1,500 and 3,000 pounds by the time they're done fully growing. So they are very, very big animals. Even when they're born, they're usually about 150 pounds. 130 to 150 might be more normal. So they start out big and they get even bigger. When baby giraffes are born, they're usually over 6 feet tall. Luca asks, what are their favorite foods? That's a good question. It does vary kind of by giraffe. Joshua here absolutely loves lettuce. Iceberg lettuce is his favorite thing on the entire planet. A lot of the other giraffes really do like the browse. So whenever they have any kind of tree right off the branch, or any kind of leaves right off the branch, we've got mulberry leaves, we've got hackberry leaves. They all kind of have a different species that they enjoy eating the most. There we go. We'll see if we can get Joshua to demonstrate how long his tongue is. You can do better. Oh, come on, buddy. There you go. Hillary asks, do they sleep standing up? That's a good question, too. Yes, they do, usually. So a giraffe can lay down. When they do, they just kind of fold their legs up underneath their chest, and their belly kind of hit the ground. But they usually don't lay their heads all the way down to the ground, so their head can remain upright. However, they usually don't go through that trouble. Giraffes usually only sleep for 8 to 15 minutes at a time, so they usually just stay standing up. You'll see their eyes kind of droop a little bit. You'll see their ears kind of droop a little bit, and then they kind of stop moving for a few minutes. That's a giraffe nap. Gage asks, why do they have spots? That's a great question. Scientists don't know 100% for sure why giraffes have spots. A lot of times when we look at an animal's skin pattern, we think it has to do with camouflage. There's more evidence suggesting that this is likely heat exchange with the environment. Having very light colors mixed with very dark colors right next to each other creates thermal changes across their skin at like a microscopic level, and it allows their body to release heat out into the environment. Because these guys are mostly found in Africa, they do live in a primarily hot climate, so being able to release that body heat is very important for them. So that's probably one of the main reasons why they have those spots. Jackie asks, how many bones are in their neck? Giraffes have 7 bones in their neck, and it's the exact same number of bones that humans do. It's just that while ours are very, very small, giraffe bones are very, very big. Joshua here is one of our taller giraffes. He comes in right around 15 feet tall, and he is still growing. So he is only about 4, almost 5 years old, and he will probably continue growing until he's at least 7. There are some male giraffes that do even have growth spurts after that. So it's possible that he could be anywhere between 15 to 17 feet by the time he's done growing. He's going to be a very big boy. Isaac asks, what are their ossicones good for? Good use of the word ossicones. So let me see if I can demonstrate these. These right here, these are the ossicones. Those are used when males are sparring in the wild. So males will fight over breeding rights to females. If there's a female in the area that's ready to breed, the males will kind of congregate and fight amongst themselves to figure out who's going to get the chance to breed her. And they'll use those ossicones as the point of impact. When giraffes spar with each other, it's a behavior called necking. They actually line up parallel to each other, and they swing their heads around to the side and use those ossicones to knock into the neck and the chest of the giraffe that they're fighting. Eventually, the biggest, strongest giraffe wins. So giraffes actually have a lot of really cool adaptations on their face to help with that, including the big bump right in the center of their face. That is a calcium deposit that makes their head very heavy so that they can win those fights in the wild. Tiffany asks, are they endangered? That's a little bit of a complicated answer. So depending on who you ask, there's typically, or officially, only one species of giraffe in the world, and they are considered vulnerable, not endangered. However, there are some subspecies of giraffe that are looking to be classified as species in their own right, and some of those would be considered endangered if they are their own species. Things like West African giraffe, Angolan giraffe, even reticulated giraffe would be considered endangered if they are their own species. So these guys are Masai giraffe. They're found mostly in Kenya and Tanzania. Audrey asks, why are their tongues purple? So their tongues are purple because it helps protect their skin on their tongue from damage from the sun. So I think a lot of us have felt what a sunburn is. We know how that feels. We know that it's not pleasant. Well, giraffes' tongues are outside of their mouth for a huge part of the day. And again, they live in a very sunny, hot climate. So having a really dark skin color on their tongue helps protect them against sunburn. I think we can all imagine what a sunburned tongue would feel like. It would not be good. So it helps protect them from that. Tommy asks, can they stand on their back legs to get higher? Not very well. They can sometimes rear up if they're trying to get over a ledge on their back legs, but they cannot balance only on their back legs alone. So typically if they can't reach it by stretching out their neck really far and sticking their tongue out as far as it goes, then they're just not going to be able to reach it. Lisa asks, what are all of their names? All right, so this here is Joshua. He's our only adult male. Over eating on the side, we have Bobby. That's our youngest male. And then all the way in the back, we have Tyra, our oldest giraffe. And then Asali, Gigi, and Camille, who are all four of our adult females. Tyra is the oldest. She's 21 years old, which is getting up there for an adult giraffe. And then all the others are under the age of 8. Asali, Camille, and Gigi were actually all born here as well. So Tyra is Asali's mom, and Asali is Gigi's mom. So we actually have 3 different generations of giraffe that all still live here together. Baker asks, do they have any predators? Yes, with some conditions. So a full-grown giraffe in his prime, like Joshua here, would probably not have to worry too much about predators. But very young giraffe, very old giraffe, any kind of injury that does make them vulnerable to things like lions. Lions are common in the areas where giraffe are found, and lions also hunt in prides. So the odds of a single animal being able to take down a giraffe are very, very small. But when lions hunt in groups, they can bring down much larger prey. So that probably is the one thing that giraffes do have to worry about are lions. Same could be said for ostrich and zebra over there. Zebra and ostrich like to hang together in the wild because zebra have very good hearing and ostriches have very good eyesight. So between the two, the odds of a predator being able to sneak up on either of them, it gets very low. So you can usually find zebra and ostrich together in the wild. And if one group spooks, the other will too. And they'll just kind of leave the area. Even if they don't know what it is the other one's running from, they'll run too. We have 3 female ostriches here at the Houston Zoo. Their names are Agatha, Henrietta, and Gertrude. So Agatha is a little bit older than the other 2. Actually, Henrietta is the older one. Ostriches will lay eggs very similar to the way that chickens do. So even if they're not fertilized, they'll just sort of lay an egg once every 4 days during the laying season, and then they'll walk away. Female ostriches are not the ones that build the nests typically. They are the ones that just lay the eggs. The males build the nests. So here we only have females. They tend to just lay down, lay an egg, and then walk away from it. So we're actually able to give those eggs to other departments here at the zoo. Things like the Komodo dragons, things like the lions. They really like to get ostrich eggs for enrichment. So we're able to give those empty eggs away to other species. Giraffes have the largest eyeballs of any land animal out there, so they can see very, very, very well. They've got big eyes, they're very tall. They usually don't live in places with super, super tall trees, so they can usually see a long way away. So this is Bobby. At this age, he is pretty independent from mom at this point. He still will occasionally drink milk, but obviously, as you can see now, he does also eat a lot of solid foods, and he will continue to kind of follow that trend where he's eating more solid food and less milk until he's weaned anywhere between 8 months and 1 year old. Melody asks, what is the lifespan of a giraffe? So in the wild, giraffe probably wouldn't live beyond 20, maybe into the early 20s, but anything beyond that's very unlikely. In human care, though, they don't have to worry about predation, they don't have to worry about food shortages, so they're actually able to live longer. The average lifespan for a giraffe in a zoo is 25. If you break it down by gender, you'll see that the males don't live quite as long as the females, so they drag the average down. Some of the oldest giraffes out there right now are female giraffes in their 30s, so they do have a pretty long lifespan in zoos. How much do they eat per day? Well, it kind of depends on how nutritious the food that they're eating is, but they probably eat somewhere between 30 to 40 pounds of food a day in the wild because they're eating just the leaves, just that pure roughage. Here at the zoo, they get a little bit more nutritious food, so they probably eat a little bit less pound for pound, but they still get all the nutrition that they need. These guys will go through anywhere from 80 to 100 pounds of alfalfa hay every single day, and another 80 to 100 pounds of pelleted grain diet that's got all the nutrients that they need. We break that up throughout the day. These guys always have access to some kind of food. Ooh, what is my favorite thing about being a zookeeper? This right here. I really enjoy working with giraffe in particular, but getting to know these guys as individuals and watching them kind of grow up and learn is great. I really love Joshua here. He is one of our best students when it comes to training. He knows a lot of different behaviors that let us get a lot of information about him without stressing him out or restraining him in every way. We can actually take x-rays of his head. We can draw blood samples from his neck. We can get him onto a scale so that we can weigh him. All of these things he's just trained to do regularly, so he's very used to them. And I love watching them kind of learn that as they grow up and watch kind of their personalities grow as they live their lives. Natasha asks, do they make any sounds? So giraffes don't make very many sounds that we can hear, but we are recently discovering that they make very, very low sounds. So these guys vocalize to each other on such a low frequency that we actually physically can't hear it with the naked ear. It requires specialized equipment. So we have historically thought that giraffes are very, very quiet animals, but then now that we're actually listening to them on a much lower level of sound, we hear that they are actually probably talking up a storm right now. This makes sense though. Lower frequency sounds have a tendency to travel further than high frequency sounds. And these guys would normally need to be communicating across miles of savanna. So they use kind of a lower range than what we can hear because that's how they need to communicate. Jessica asks, how much do they weigh? Our giraffes weigh anything from 1,500 to 3,000 pounds by the time they're done fully growing. There's a lot of variability in how big giraffe can be. They can be 12 feet tall fully grown, they can be 15 feet tall, they can be 18 feet tall. So there's a pretty wide range for how big these guys are once they're their full size. Joshua here is a very big boy. He's going to be very big by the time he's done, I think. So Bobby was actually born here. His dad is Joshua and his mom is Camille. Joshua's pretty recognizable because he's our only adult male, but Camille is actually one of the lightest of all of our giraffes. So we're very curious moving forward whether or not Bobby ends up looking more like his mom or more like his dad. Right now he's very light in color, so we're thinking he may take after his mom. But he is growing very, very, very fast, so he may be tall like his dad once he grows up. Giraffe genetics are very similar to human genetics. You just kind of have to see what comes out in the wash. So we'll be keeping an eye on Bobby to see what happens. Connor asks, how long have I worked at the zoo? I worked at the zoo for 7 years, and then before that, I was an intern for 2 different terms. And I was a volunteer for a little while as well. So I've been involved in the zoo in some way for the last 8 years. And then what is my typical day like as a zookeeper? Well, you start really early. We start work at about 6:30 in the mornings in the summer so that we can get a lot of the outside work done before it gets really hot. And also so that we can have the zoo ready for you guys by the time the doors open at 9 a.m. So we start really early. We come in, we check on all the animals. We bring all the animals to their inside areas and we give them their breakfast. And then we come out and we will clean the outdoor areas. So for me, I'm a host zookeeper. Cleaning involves lots of raking and shoveling. Oh, this is Camille. So right here we've got mom and dad. of baby Bobby here. This is Camille. She was born here about 4 years ago. 5 years ago, actually. Whew, time flies. So after zookeepers are done cleaning, they'll also put out any food, any enrichment that needs to be outside. We'll do training, and then we will move the animals into their outdoor areas, and we will get to cleaning the indoor areas. So a lot of people are surprised to find out that a large portion of a zookeeper's job is actually cleaning. And only a very small portion of it is this fun stuff that you guys are observing right now, which is sort of the face-to-face interactions with the animals. We also give keeper chats every day. We do behind-the-scenes tours. We do all kinds. We do Facebook Live events. We do all kinds of stuff for the zoo. So our days are as varied as they come. Sean wants to know, what kind of enrichment activities do they get? So giraffes, a lot of their enrichment is revolved around the use of their tongue. So in the wild, they'd be using their tongue almost constantly. They're just constantly sticking their tongue out, pulling it back in. We want to mimic that here in zoos. So a lot of the enrichment that they get is puzzle feeders. So it's devices with like holes cut in them or slots in them, just made to where the giraffe has to stick their tongue into the device and grab the food and pull out of it. Sometimes it's a maze. Sometimes it's just a plastic water bottle that's got some stuff inside, so they are constantly having to move that tongue in and out of their mouth and in and out of their mouth. That's a very natural behavior. It actually helps stimulate saliva production, which is important to their digestion. So they need to have their tongue moving throughout a lot of the day. And so we have lots of enrichment designed to do exactly that. I think Camille just wants to say hi. She's not eating food. You just want to say hi? All right, well, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for participating in all of the questions. Thank you for supporting the Houston Zoo. If you are able to continue to support the Houston Zoo, we do have an emergency fund for the zoo. It's at houstonzoo.org. If you are willing and able to donate, we would very much appreciate it. It allows us to do what we do with these guys every day and also help protect their cousins out in the wild. And then also, we will be back live again tomorrow at 11 a.m., so tune in there and see what we've got in store tomorrow.